Mermaids are not always the beautiful fishtail creatures that you hear of in fairy tales. They can be quite nasty. Today I'm going to talk about different types of mermaids. A mermaid found in the Arctic and in other parts of the world that sounds similar.
It was a Sunday morning in one of the small villages in the Northwest Territories in Canada when the church services were starting. I was 4 years old at the time, and it was still winter. Me and my friend, while we were playing on the beach, we heard knocks from underneath the ice, loud thuds like something was trying to break through to the surface. Then the water started to splash, and we looked. We saw a head pop up out of the ice. We thought it was a person at first, but we quickly realized it was not human. It was some sort of a mermaid-like creature. The Qallupilluk, the merman, jumped up into the ice, and it had a face that seemed to be a cross between a human and a fish. It was wearing duckskin clothing, like skin ducks, brown and white ducks, totally waterproof. Inuit people would make parkas like this long ago. His hair looked like seaweed, and he had a big hood on the back, the kind that Inuit women would wear to hold babies. He had a very long and webbed fingers and duck-like feet. His legs were short in proportion to his long arms. His skin was scaly and the color of the sea, a bluish-green color. He had eyes like a fish, yellow with large black pupils, and his eyes were quite large and spaced apart. His eyes were larger than these drawings of the Qallupilluk that you see here, but the nose is just like what this thing had, slits instead of a nose like a human. The merman was also only about 4 feet tall maybe, not very tall, but scary looking. He had a very wide mouth filled with sharp fang-like teeth, and his eyes were big. This thing also had a very strong smell, like dead fish or sulfur. The strange creature was very scary looking, and it seemed to be very grumpy. I was watching him come out of the water and walk towards me. I feel like I was watching him for at least 5 minutes. I was in utter shock seeing this creature, and I was covered in goosebumps seeing a creature straight out of old Inuit stories in the flesh. As it approached, it spoke to us in Inupiaq, in a very strange voice, sounded like an old witch. It said,
"Come into my pouch, or something bad is going to happen to you."
While it was saying that, it started to run fast at me and my friend. My friend was frozen in terror, but luckily, I was able to move. I grabbed her and pulled her, ran away as fast as we could. The creature was not very fast on land. Because it was not able to keep up with us, it got angry and walked back to the ocean after we got far enough away, and it went back underwater. I wondered what would happen to us if it captured me. Would I have been taken to its world? Do you think it would have eaten me? Or tried to adopt me and raise me? I always hear stories of these things wanting to abduct kids. The pouch on its parka made it seem like it was trying to hold kids in it. But for what purpose? Based on its grumpy and mean attitude, I don't think it would have been anything good.
The interesting thing about this Alaskan mermaid was that it was said to have short legs. I watched a documentary about Michael Phelps where they said he was built for swimming because he had a long torso, long arms, and short legs, which is exactly the description of this mermaid. Here's another interesting case about mermaids on the Molucca Islands in Indonesia, also known as the Kai Islands. In 1943, Japanese soldiers stationed with a surveillance team on a small remote island within the Key Island chain reported to seeing strange creatures in the water that were said to have limbs and a face somewhat similar to that of a human, but a mouth like a carp, filled with sharp, needle-like teeth. These bizarre creatures were described as typically being around 151 centimeters tall and having pink or salmon-colored skin, as well as having prominent spines or spikes of some sort on their heads or even on their necks and shoulders. These strange beings were not really keeping with the image of what a mermaid should look like at all. Unlike the more classical mermaids, these mer beings were not described as attractive maidens, and they did not have holy fish tails, but rather possessed 2 long arms and 2 prominent frog-like legs, both of which ended with wicked talons. On several occasions, these beings were seen cavorting about near beaches, or most commonly in lagoons. In one case, 2 of the odd creatures were spotted playing in a lagoon, and on another was reportedly seen swimming near a beach in a manner similar to a human doing the breaststroke. One report was told by a startled soldier who recalls seeing one of the creatures on a beach one night. At first, the soldier had thought it was a child until it turned around and he could see it in the moonlight, and its facial features were not quite right. The creature quickly ran headlong into the water upon being seen and did not resurface. They were allegedly able to get around on land to some degree, with another soldier claiming to have seen one running about on the sand at dusk, seeming to be looking for something. However, they were claimed to be most at home in the water, through which they were able to deftly and agilely dart and zoom through with ease. There were even reports of the troops stationed there engaging the creatures. One patrol of Japanese soldiers claimed that they had slogged through a thicket of underbrush to come upon an isolated lagoon. At first, things seemed quite serene and peaceful, as most scenes on the quiet island. But then there was a sudden thrashing in the water. Thinking it was some sort of large fish, the curious soldiers looked out to see what would happen, trying to peer through the sun-speckled surface to see what sort of fish could be causing such a commotion. As they squinted and gazed at the water, a strange being lurched out from beneath to pull itself up onto the rock outcropping. It was described as being pinkish in color and having ape-like features, only it was devoid of hair and possessed an oversized mouth like a fish, with arms that ended in webbed hands and claws. The creature quickly turned to the soldiers, gawking on the bank, and reportedly let out a gurgled, burping noise that the troops did not translate as being particularly friendly. Soon after, another could be seen making its way through the water towards them in a purportedly elegant, smooth fashion, as fast as any fish. The speed with which it approached was startling, and those claws weighed on everyone's mind. As the second creature silently darted towards them, the one on the rock continued its backward symphony of gurgling, throaty, coughing noises, and the men began to fire. The water erupted in spouts of water kicked up by the bullets, and fire was directed towards the rock as well. But shortly after this barrage, the creatures were gone, leaving the baffled soldiers there amidst the jungle noises, wondering what they had just seen. Another exhausted soldier who had taken a break near the water to pour some over himself and cool down, reported that as he opened his eyes to the pleasure of feeling the cool water on his skin, he saw staring back at him the face of a horrible monkey thing with a fish-like mouth and spines like a sea urchin, protruding from the surface not 3 feet away from him. Exuding a fishy stench, he immediately fumbled for his sidearm and unloaded it at the terrifying thing, but whether he hit it or not remains unknown. When his panicked, blind firing was done, the creature had sunk beneath the water and vanished. Other soldiers, while not directly encountering the beast, often saw them laying on secluded beaches or swimming lazily about. At least one soldier claims to have seen one catching a fish and stuffing it in their gaping mouth. They were most frequently sighted in lagoons, not typically near the sea itself. Although the Japanese soldiers were deeply perplexed by these sightings and encounters, these creatures were not unknown to the indigenous people of the island. When asked about them, villagers in the vicinity told the Japanese that they were known locally as Orang Ikan in Malay. Orang means human and Ikan means fish, so we have something akin to manfish. The villagers said that they were often seen about the islands and were sometimes even caught in nets. They were said to mostly keep to themselves, but that they were fiercely territorial and would attack if approached too closely. Indeed, the creatures were feared, but seen as a fact of life, and the Japanese were informed that if another was captured, they would be told so that they could look at them for themselves. One evening, the sergeant of the surveillance team, a Mr. Taro Horiba, was summoned by the chief of the nearby village. It was announced to Horiba that the Orang Ikan had been found dead on the beach earlier that day, and the body was available for viewing. The sergeant, somewhat skeptically, made his way towards the hut, where anxious villagers were gathered, looking as if they were scared of something. The Japanese sergeant found himself wondering if he really wanted to see what was in the hut, to come face to face with what was frightening these local people so much. Nevertheless, the rational part of him assumed that there would be some mundane explanation, that he would find an explainable answer within. Horiba would be dumbfounded by what he was to find sprawled out on the grass laid out in the chief's home. Horibe described the strange dead creature he saw laid out there as being around 160 centimeters long and possessing a head of red-brown, shoulder-length hair, although it was sparse and patchy, as well as spines along the neck. The face was said to be quite ugly, with a combination of human and ape-like features, a low, short nose and a broad forehead and small ears. The lipless mouth was wide like that of a fish, specifically described like that of a carp, and filled with tiny, sharp, needle-like teeth, which were mused to be perfect for grabbing and holding prey. The creature's fingers and toes were long and webbed, and ended in translucent claws. Horiba also reported that there was some sort of algae attached all over its body, which gave the body a greenish cast in some places. The stench of the beast was said to be horrific, like a mix of rotting fish and fetid meat, an absolute assault to the senses. Sergeant Horiba, although having sighted the Orang Ikan himself on several occasions but from a distance and doubting what he had seen, could not fathom what it was that he had witnessed so closely at the chief's home. There was no known creature residing on the island that could possibly be accounted for by the strange dead humanoid creature he had witnessed, and the sight of the creature deeply disturbed and unsettled him. Upon returning to Japan, Horiba told of his experiences and urged zoologists to go investigate the phenomenon, but no one took him seriously. The fact that he had taken no photos did not help his cause, and in the end, he was mostly ridiculed. As you can see, there's a certain type of mermaid that seems to have a wide mouth with rows of sharp teeth, kind of like what you would see in a fish. Biologically speaking, this makes sense because when you bite your prey, you don't want it to be able to wriggle out. That's why fish have the rows of curved, sharp teeth. So, although they might look scary, it doesn't necessarily mean they're evil just because they have a scary look to them. For all we know, they're abducting children because they want to make friends with them. But, again, the cruel demeanor that the mermaid had when trying to abduct that girl doesn't make them seem too friendly. Mermaid sightings are exceedingly rare. I've had a couple people in my life that I've met in Alaska that have seen these mermaid-like creatures. And remarkably, they've said a similar description to the first story that we read. They said, skin like the ocean, like greenish and scaly, with large yellow or green fish-like eyes, and a wide mouth, like wider than our humans, with sharp teeth covering them. Not all of them have seen the short legs or the arm length in proportion with the legs, but they do say they wear clothes and they have those weird features. The other mermaid that was seen in the Maluku Islands in Indonesia had similar features to the one seen in the Arctic. Now, I'm not saying these are the only types of mermaids out there, because most stories that you read will talk about a dolphin-like tail and beautiful female figure mermaid creature. The fact that they can speak is very interesting too. Like, the woman that gave me the story, the first story that we did, she was from a small village in Nunavut, Canada. The fact that that creature could speak Inupiaq and told her, "Come here, get into my pouch or something bad will happen to you," I found quite interesting. Like, why would it speak a human language? Was it telepathy? Because that was the first language that she spoke. She was speaking fluent Inupiaq when she was 4. If you like, click like. If you don't, click the down like button. Either way is good with me. Subscribe and like if you want the channel to grow. Perhaps these creatures are interdimensional travelers. They found a way to open doors to walk between dimensions. I'm not saying that they're interdimensional beings, like they exist in a different dimension. I'm saying they found a way to cross it somehow. And maybe a byproduct of interdimensional travel is that real rank stink smell. But who knows? I could be wrong. Or they just stink. They're stink creatures. They think it smells good, maybe. Who knows? If you've heard of anybody seeing these strange creatures, please leave a comment and email me or write your story out or something, because these stories are not talked about very much, and we need to start sharing what we know.